A glittering diamond promised fortune and brilliance, until it sparked a mystery that blew the fuse on a deadly secret. Welcome to the Silent Clueworks. I am your host, Echo of Silence. Comment where you're listening from. Your presence makes these stories come alive. Let's enter the mystery. When the doorbell rings during one of Wolfe's regulated hours, it is not merely an interruption. It is a declaration of war. At 4:16 p.m., with Wolfe installed behind his desk and pretending to read a monograph on Balkan viticulture while actually digesting lunch in serene contemplation, the bell sounded. Not a tentative press. A long, sustained assault, as if the visitor meant to lean on it until the wiring surrendered. I was at my desk in the outer office, reconciling an expense sheet that would have caused Wolfe cardiac distress if he'd ever deigned to inspect it. I glanced at the clock, then at the closed door to the office. No movement. That meant I was to handle it. The bell rang again. I opened the front door to find a woman who looked as if she had been poured into her clothes by a careful but impatient hand. Early 30s, ash blonde hair pinned with mechanical precision, gray suit that probably cost more than the rug under my shoes. Her eyes were blue and hard enough to strike sparks. "Is this Nero Wolfe's residence?" she asked. "It is," I said. "And you've just offended him. I don't care." That was refreshing. I ushered her in before she could lean on the bell again and escorted her to the office. Wolfe did not look up as we entered, which meant he had heard everything. "Mr. Wolfe," I said, "this is Livia Dane," she supplied, "and I need your help." Wolfe turned a page with deliberate calm. "You are 26 minutes late for the proper hour to need my help. My brother will be arrested by morning." Wolfe's eyes lifted then. Not wide, Wolfe does nothing wide, but alert. "For what?" he asked. "For stealing a diamond that doesn't exist." That interested me. Wolfe removed his spectacles and polished them with the edge of his handkerchief. "Miss Dane, diamonds generally exist before they are stolen. It is a property of their nature. This one was supposed to be unveiled tonight," she said. "The Voltaire star. 47 carats. It was the centerpiece of a private exhibition at the Halbrook Gallery. My brother, Adrian, is the chief electrical engineer. At 9:03 last night, the lights failed for 12 seconds. When they came back on, the diamond was gone." "And it does not exist?" Wolfe inquired. She hesitated. "I believe it was never there." I leaned back against the filing cabinet. Now we were getting somewhere. "The gallery claims it was mounted inside a pressure-sealed glass cube," she continued. "Only 3 people had access to the display controls. Adrian designed the system. They're saying he engineered the blackout to cover the theft. And you?" Wolfe asked. "I think someone used him. Or framed him. Or both." Wolfe replaced his spectacles. "What evidence supports your belief that the diamond was never present?" Her jaw tightened because I saw the shipping manifest. And the crate listed on the manifest arrived empty. That made me straighten. "Empty how?" I asked. "As in no diamond, or as in no anything? As in no padding, no internal casing, just a sealed crate and air?" Wolfe steepled his fingers, a bad sign for the opposition. "Who opened it?" he asked. "The curator. Felix Tarrant, in the presence of the gallery director and a security consultant. They dismissed it as a packing anomaly, said the diamond had been transferred earlier for insurance verification." "And you believe that explanation insufficient?" Wolfe murmured. "It's nonsense." The insurance company confirmed no prior transfer. The room settled. Even the ticking clock seemed to reconsider its occupation. Wolfe closed the monograph. That was the first real movement he had made. "You have not gone to the police with this discrepancy? They won't listen. The blackout makes it simple. Engineer designs system. System fails. Diamond disappears. Case closed." "Too simple," Wolfe said softly. She leaned forward. Yes, I watched her hands, no tremor. Either she was telling the truth, or she had rehearsed this to Carnegie Hall standards. Wolfe regarded her for a long moment. Miss Dane, I do not involve myself in matters of absent jewels unless there is an intellectual imperative. Her chin lifted. There is. He raised a brow. The blackout didn't just turn off the lights, she said. It blew the main fuse in the building. Completely. The backup generator failed to engage. My brother would never design a system that self-destructed. Ah. Wolfe's eyelids lowered fractionally. A fuse does not blow without reason. Either it is overloaded or it is persuaded. I could almost hear the gears turning. Not in his head. In the room. Who benefits, Wolfe asked, from a diamond that vanishes before it can be publicly verified? She answered without hesitation. The gallery, the insurance firm, and possibly the man who claimed to have donated it. Name? Leonid Vask. That was a name with vowels sharp enough to cut glass. Wolfe leaned back. You believe the diamond was fiction? A myth constructed for profit? Yes. And your brother? He's the scapegoat. Wolfe's gaze shifted to me. That meant the decision had been made before I heard it. Archie, he said, contact Sol Panzer. I want discreet inquiries into the Halbrook Gallery, Mr. Leonid Vask, and the insurer of record. Also obtain the electrical schematics of the building. I grinned at Miss Dane. Congratulations. You've disturbed the sanctity of the brownstone. Wolfe shot me a glance. The sanctity, Mr. Goodwin, is not disturbed. It is engaged. He turned back to her. Miss Dane, if the diamond never existed, then someone has constructed an illusion of remarkable audacity. Illusions require control. And control leaves traces, she exhaled, slow and careful. My brother won't be arrested? She asked. That, Wolfe said, depends on whether the fuse was blown by incompetence or by design. Dinner would be delayed, and somewhere in Manhattan, a diamond that might have been imaginary had already begun to cast a very real shadow. Wolfe kept his eyes on Miss Dane after he spoke about the fuse, as if her answer might be hiding in the seams of her gray suit. I took the hint and moved. When Wolfe says Sol Panzer's name, you don't put it on a list, you do it. Sol answered on the second ring. I gave him the essentials: Halbrook Gallery, missing Voltaire star, blackout, blown main fuse, brother Adrian Dane as convenient culprit, and a benefactor named Leonid Vask. I'll start with the insurer, he said. And Vask, be discreet, I told him. I'm always discreet, Sol said, and hung up. When I returned, Wolfe asked Miss Dane for documents. She produced a slim folder and slid it toward him. Wolfe didn't touch it, he nodded at me, so I took it and set it on my desk outside. Your brother is at home? Wolfe asked. Yes, suspended. Police told him to stay put. Wise, Wolfe said. If innocent, flight is absurd. If guilty, flight is futile. She held his stare. Wolfe's voice stayed calm. You will be available. Mr. Goodwin will go to the gallery. If you interfere, you will be dismissed. If you conceal, you will be exposed. I want the truth, she said. Then do not confuse it, Wolfe replied. I walked her to the hall. Near the stairs, her composure cracked just enough to show the strain underneath. Archie. My brother raised me, she said, low. Our parents died when I was 15. If he's arrested, I'll do the talking, I said. You do the waiting. She nodded and left, closing the front door as gently as a librarian. Back in Wolfe's office, he considered the folder without opening it. As though logic could seep through cardboard. You will go at once, he said. Observe. Converse. Acquire facts. And, his eyes flicked to mine, be courteous. Of course, I said. In the taxi, I read the manifest. Voltaire Star, consigned, sealed. Weight, 18.2 kilograms, plausible for a serious crate, whether it contained a stone or a secret. The insurer note from Halcyon Indemnity was brief, no prior transfer for verification was recorded. Names present at opening: Felix Tarrant, curator, Miriam Halbrook, director, Ronan Clee, security consultant. The Halbrook Gallery sat on a tidy street and smelled of polished stone and money, trying to be tasteful. A receptionist with severe bangs tried to stop me. "I'm Archie Goodwin, representing Nero Wolfe," I said. "I'm here about last night." Her mouth tightened at Wolfe's name. "Mr. Tarrant is occupied." "Then he can be occupied with me," I said. Felix Tarrant's office was framed posters and a desk built to discourage confession. Tarrant himself was thin, handsome, and carefully weary, with a silk scarf he probably hated but wore anyway. He rose halfway. "Mr. Wolfe refused to come?" "He rarely travels," I said. "Tell me about the blackout. It was engineered," he said too quickly. 12 seconds. Perfect. "Whoever did it knew the system? Or knew how to make it fail?" Our consultant reviewed it. "Mr. Clee says it had to be internal. Where is Clee?" "With Mrs. Halbrook." In the main hall, we crossed white rooms full of paintings that looked like expensive accidents. In the main hall, the display pedestal waited like an empty stage. The glass cube still sat there, spotless, but inside the mount, 3 small metal prongs looked naked. Miriam Halbrook stood beside it, tall and composed in a dark dress. Ronan Clee was next to her, broad-shouldered, shaved head, eyes busy counting exits. Halbrook's gaze settled on me. "Mr. Wolfe's representative." "Archie Goodwin," I said. "I'm sorry you're having trouble." "A benefactor's gift stolen," she said. "An exhibition jeopardized. Reputations attacked." Clee added, "and a system designed by the suspect." I let that hang and asked Halbrook. "Last night, who was in this room when the lights failed?" Tarrant recited staff names, a few invited patrons, and then, as if forced to swallow something sour, said Leonid Vask arrived late. He left early. At Vask's name, Halbrook's eyelids flickered, just a blink, but it wasn't surprise. It was calculation. I stepped closer to the pedestal. Clee shifted a fraction, watching my hands. The mount had fresh scuffs on one prong, tiny bright marks, as if a ring had been slid off in a hurry. "Mrs. Halbrook," I said, "what exactly did Mr. Vask donate, your diamond or your problem?" Her face stayed smooth. "Mr. Vask donated a treasure." "Then," I said, writing down the scuffs, "I'd like to meet the man who brought it in. Before someone convinces the police your engineer brought it out." Halbrook's chin lifted. "Mr. Vask is not at your disposal." "Neither is Mr. Wolfe," I said, "and yet people keep ringing his bell." Clee's mouth twitched. "Vask will talk to whoever he chooses." The police spoke to him. "About what he gave you? Or what you gave him?" I asked. Tarrant bristled. "This is absurd, maybe, but I want the security log from 8:45 to 9:15 and the maintenance report on the main fuse. If your system failed, it left fingerprints." Halbrook hesitated, then said, "Come to my office." "Mr. Clee, accompany us." "Fine. I wanted company, so nothing else could quietly disappear while I was looking." Halbrook's office overlooked the main hall through a pane of discreet glass that let her watch without appearing to. The room was arranged with the precision of someone who liked control displayed as taste. Clee closed the door behind us with unnecessary care. "Mr. Goodwin," Halbrook said, taking her seat, "we have cooperated fully with the police." "I'm not the police," I said. "You'll find me less patient." Clee remained standing. He had the stance of a man who trusted his muscles more than other people's words. Halbrook slid a slim folder across her desk. "Security log. Access to the display controls is restricted to myself, Mr. Tarrant, and Mr. Clee." Adrian Dane programmed the timing sequence, but did not retain override privileges. According to whom? I asked. According to the contract. She said cool. Contracts are fine things. They state what ought to happen. They don't prevent what does. I read. At 9:02 p.m., routine lighting cycle shift, pre-programmed dimming to highlight the Voltaire star. At 9:03 p.m., full outage recorded. Backup generator failed to engage. Main fuse in the basement tripped, then blew completely. Manual reset required. 12 seconds, I said. 12, Clee confirmed. Long enough. For what? I asked. For someone to lift the cube and remove the stone? I glanced up. The cube is pressure sealed. Clee's jaw tightened. It can be disengaged with a keyed magnetic release, and who has the key? He didn't answer immediately. Halbrook did. Mr. Clee, Mr. Tarrant, and myself. No engineer? I asked. Not after installation, she said. I let the silence sit. It made Clee uncomfortable. He shifted his weight. Where is the fuse box? I asked. In the basement, Clee said. Locked utility room. Who has access? Building management. Myself. Mr. Dane, there we are, Halbrook said. He had access. Did you see him enter the utility room? I asked. No, she said. Did anyone? Clee said. The cameras went down with the power. Convenient, I murmured. Halbrook's eyes cooled a degree. Are you suggesting this institution staged its own loss? I'm suggesting, I said, that someone knew the blackout would do more than darken a room. It disabled your cameras and destroyed your main fuse. That's not a casual side effect. Clee folded his arms. A surge. From what? I asked. A meteor? He didn't smile. Show me the fuse, I said. Clee hesitated, then nodded. Fine. The basement smelled of dust and old wiring. The utility room was narrow, concrete walls painted an optimistic beige. The fuse box sat open, a blackened cavity where the main fuse had been. Replaced this morning, Clee said. But I kept the damaged unit. He handed it to me from a shelf. The fuse was a heavy industrial cylinder, its glass cracked, the metal ends scorched. I held it up. This didn't just trip. It burned. Overload, Clee said. Or a deliberate spike, I replied. He shrugged. If you're implying sabotage, you're back to your engineer. Maybe, I said. But engineers tend to avoid blowing up their own systems. It's bad for the Ursum. We went back upstairs. In the main hall, I paused again at the pedestal. The scuff on the prong nagged at me. Mrs. Halbrook, I called. When did you first see the diamond? She stopped. At the unveiling rehearsal yesterday afternoon. Describe it. Her expression softened despite herself. Brilliant. Clear. A faint blue heart under certain light. And you handled it? No, Mr. Vask placed it inside the cube himself. Clee added. We supervised, of course, I said. And the crate? I asked. Who opened it? Tarrant, she said. With me and Mr. Clee present, and it was empty. Of packing materials, she corrected. The diamond was in a velvet case inside. That case now? Gone. I nodded slowly. An empty crate with a diamond in a case. No packing, no cushioning. A 47-carat stone shipped like a paperback. Who arranged the shipment? I asked. Mr. Vask's office, Halbrook said. From Antwerp. Do you have documentation? In the archives. Make a copy for me. She studied me a moment. You are thorough, Mr. Goodwin. I try not to be decorative. As I left, I asked one more question. When the lights came back on, who reached the pedestal first? Clee answered. I did, and the cube was still sealed. But the diamond was gone. That's a trick worth seeing, I said. Outside, I phoned Wolfe from the sidewalk. Well, he said. The fuse burned, not just tripped. The cube requires a magnetic key held by 3 people. The crate was theatrically empty, except for a velvet case that has now vanished. Vask personally placed the stone in the cube. Klee reached it first after the blackout and claims it was sealed but empty. Wolfe was silent for a full breath. And your impression? Everyone is telling the truth, I said. Or rehearsing the same lie? Good, Wolfe said. Truth and rehearsed lies differ in only one respect: endurance. I've requested shipping documents. Obtain them. Then visit Mr. Adrian Dane. Police told him to stay home. You are not the police, I smiled. I'll let him know. As I started walking toward a cab, I glanced back at the gallery's polished fade. Somewhere inside that tidy building was either a vanished diamond or a carefully staged myth. Either way, someone had counted on 12 seconds of darkness to settle the matter. What bothered me wasn't the blackout. It was the sealed cube that stayed sealed. A fuse can be persuaded. A camera can be silenced. But a locked container that loses its contents without opening, that suggested something more than theft. It suggested substitution. And if the Voltaire star had been a ghost from the beginning, then last night's blackout hadn't been to steal a diamond. It had been to erase one. Adrian Dane lived in a narrow apartment on the east side that looked as if it had been arranged by a man who preferred diagrams to decoration. The furniture was functional, the books technical, and the air carried the faint metallic scent of solder. He opened the door before I finished knocking. You're not the police, he said. Archie Goodwin. Nero Wolfe. His shoulders lowered a fraction. My sister went to you? She did. He stepped aside and let me in. The living room doubled as a workspace. Blueprints were spread across a drafting table, and a dismantled circuit board sat like an autopsy on the coffee table. They think I did it, he said without prompting. They think you designed a blackout to steal a diamond. I designed a fail-safe lighting modulation system, he snapped. Not a self-immolating fuse. That fuse burned, I said. Not just tripped. His eyes sharpened. Burned, scorched clean through. He ran a hand through his hair. Unlike his sister, he showed strain openly. That's impossible under normal load. The system draws a steady current. Even if someone overrode the dimming cycle, it wouldn't spike high enough to blow the main unless, I nudged. Unless the backup generator tried to engage simultaneously and something forced a phase conflict. That sounds expensive, I said. It sounds deliberate. I leaned against the drafting table. Who had access to the generator controls? Maintenance and Ronan Klee. Not you? I installed the monitoring software. Physical control stayed with security. That matched Halbrook's version, more or less. I watched his hands as he spoke. No twitch, no darting eyes. Tell me about the cube, I said. He grimaced. The cube wasn't my department. I integrated its alarm signal into the lighting system. That's all. Could it register as sealed while open? Not unless someone tampered with the sensor loop, from inside or outside. Inside, he said without hesitation. It's a closed circuit. I let that settle. When the lights went out, where were you? In the side corridor near the control panel. I was monitoring the dimming cycle. When the blackout hit, I thought it was a city surge. Then I smelled insulation. You went to the basement? Yes. By the time I reached the utility room, Klee was already there. That was new. He beat you to it? He said he was checking perimeter alarms. Did you see the fuse then? It was destroyed, glass cracked, housing blackened. And the generator? Dead. Control board fried. Fried how? He hesitated, as if it received voltage from the wrong direction. I whistled softly. You're saying someone fed power back into it? That's what it looked like. I moved closer to the drafting table. A set of fresh notes lay there, scribbled fast. You've been reconstructing it, I said. I can't help it. They think I'm incompetent or criminal. I'm neither. Were you in debt? I asked. His jaw tightened. No. Pressured by Vask? Halbrook? Anyone? No. Did you ever see the diamond up close? He blinked. No. It wasn't my concern. Did you believe it was real? I had no reason not to. Your sister thinks it never existed. His mouth parted, then closed. What? She saw the shipping manifest. Said the crate arrived empty. He stared at me as if I'd accused gravity of fraud. That's absurd, is it? He paced once across the room, then back. If the crate was empty, then the diamond was introduced locally. By Vask, or by the gallery, or, I added, it was never introduced at all. He stopped pacing. You think the blackout was to hide that fact? I think, I said, that 12 seconds of darkness can erase more than a stone. He sank into a chair. If the diamond wasn't there to begin with, then the cube would have registered weight anomalies. Unless the sensor loop was tampered with, I reminded him. He looked up slowly. From inside? Exactly. We let that breathe. Did you ever enter the cube housing? I asked. Only during installation. After that, security sealed it. With whose supervision? Cleese. Did Vask attend the installation? No. I checked my watch. The timeline was tightening like a wire. One more thing, I said. When the lights came back on, who reached the pedestal first? Clee, he answered immediately. He was closer, and he announced the diamond gone. Yes. I nodded. That fit too neatly to ignore. My phone vibrated. Saul, I've got something, he said without preamble. Halcyon Indemnity insured the Voltaire Star for $20 million. Policy activated 48 hours before the unveiling. Standard? Not for a donation, supposedly in transit for weeks. What about Vask? Colorful. Made his money in commodities. Recently liquidated several holdings. Quietly. Trouble? Let's say his liquidity looks strategic. I thanked him and hung up. Adrian was watching me. What? Insurance was fresh, I said, and expensive. His face went pale. You think this is an insurance play? I think someone wanted $20 million more than they wanted a diamond. He stood slowly. And I'm the distraction, possibly. Or the scapegoat. That too. He moved to the window and stared out. If Clee tampered with the cube sensor from inside, he'd need access before the unveiling. When was the last time it was opened? I asked. Rehearsal yesterday afternoon. Vask placed the diamond inside. With witnesses. Yes, and after that? It remained sealed. I watched his reflection in the glass. If the diamond was substituted then, or never there at all, the blackout wasn't to steal it. He turned back to me. It was to destroy evidence. Exactly. Of what? Of whatever the cube's internal system might have recorded, I said. And maybe of something else. What else? The fuse, I said. A blown fuse draws attention. A tripped one doesn't. He absorbed that. Mr. Goodwin, he said carefully, if someone fed reverse voltage into that system, they had to know exactly how it was wired. Meaning? Meaning it wasn't random? No, I agreed. It wasn't. I headed for the door. Where are you going? He asked. To see a man who donates diamonds, I said, and to ask him why darkness was worth $20 million. Leonid Vask received me in a suite that looked as if it had been assembled from the spoils of 3 empires and a tax deduction. Heavy drapes, darker wood, a view of the park framed like a private acquisition. He stood when I entered, which surprised me. Men who insure $20 million diamonds and arrive late to unveilings generally prefer others to do the standing. Mr. Goodwin, he said, extending a hand. His accent was faint but deliberate, the kind a man keeps after deciding it is useful. I understand you represent Mr. Wolfe. I do. He prefers chairs. I travel. Vask smiled thinly. He was in his 50s, broad through the shoulders, hair silver at the temples in a way that suggested maintenance rather than surrender. You wish to ask me about the Voltaire Star, he said. I do. It was a tragedy. For whom? I asked. He gestured toward a chair. I sat. He remained standing, which told me he liked advantage measured in inches. For art, he said, for generosity, for public trust, and for halcyon indemnity? I asked. A flicker in his eyes, annoyance, not surprise. Insurance is prudence, 48 hours before unveiling. When one donates a jewel of that magnitude, one ensures it is protected. Protected from what? From precisely what occurred. I crossed one leg over the other. Mr. Vask, did you see the shipping crate opened? Yes. Was it empty? He paused. Not long. Just enough. It contained the diamond, he said evenly. In a velvet case, no packing material. It was packed appropriately when it left Antwerp, but when it arrived, his jaw tightened. Mr. Goodwin, I am not a warehouseman. I saw the diamond. That is sufficient. Did you handle it? Of course. I placed it inside the display cube myself. With Mr. Tarrant and Mrs. Halbrook present, yes. And Mr. Clee? Yes. I nodded. After it was placed, was the cube opened again before the unveiling? No. You're certain? I am. I studied him. His confidence was practiced, but not careless. When the lights failed, where were you? In the main hall, and when they returned? I saw confusion. I saw Mr. Clee rush to the pedestal, and he declared the diamond gone. You didn't check yourself? The cube was sealed, so you say, it was sealed, he repeated. I let the silence stretch. He didn't fill it. Mr. Vask, I said finally, are you in financial difficulty? His eyes went cold. No, you've liquidated several holdings recently. That is public record. It does not equal difficulty. It equals movement. Business requires movement. And insurance requires opportunity, I said. He stepped closer. Are you accusing me of orchestrating a theft of my own gift? I'm exploring the possibility that there was no gift. The air in the room changed temperature. You imply the diamond did not exist. I imply that if it did exist, someone went to remarkable lengths to destroy the systems that might prove it. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed softly. You are clever, Mr. Goodwin. But you misunderstand something. I have built my reputation on acquisition. To fabricate such a jewel would be to destroy that reputation. Unless, I said, you needed the insurance more than the reputation. He turned away, walked to the window, and looked out at the park. Do you know, he said quietly, how rare a stone of that quality is? Rare enough to be convenient. He faced me again. I will not be insulted in my own office. Then help me, I said. Where did you acquire the Voltaire star? Private collection. Name? Confidential. Country? Belgium. That narrows it to several thousand possibilities. His lips pressed thin. The seller required anonymity, yet trusted you with a 47-carat stone, yes. And you transported it personally. It was shipped. Through whom? A bonded courier service, documentation. With my office, I'll need copies. He hesitated. That was the first real crack. Why? He asked. Because if the crate arrived empty except for a velvet case, someone substituted the contents before it reached the gallery. Or the case was empty to begin with. His eyes hardened. It was not empty. You saw the stone? Yes. Under what light? He blinked. What? At rehearsal. Was it gallery light? Daylight? Specialized? Gallery lighting. Calibrated to enhance brilliance? He didn't answer immediately. Mr. Vask, I said softly, synthetic stones have improved. Under certain lighting they persuade. His face flushed faintly. Anger, not guilt, yet. You suggest I cannot distinguish a true diamond from an imitation? I suggest, I said, that persuasion comes in many forms. He walked back to his desk and pressed a button. A door opened and a young assistant entered. Bring me the Antwerp file, he said. She left. You will see, he told me. I have nothing to hide. Everyone has something, I said. When the file arrived, he handed it to me without sitting. Shipping documents, appraisal certificate, photographs. The certificate bore an impressive seal and a signature I didn't recognize. Who appraised it? I asked. An independent gemologist. Name? Dr. Emil Korff. I made a note. And he verified authenticity? Yes, recently. 3 weeks ago. Where? In Antwerp. I closed the file. Mr. Vask, if the diamond was genuine and present at rehearsal, then someone removed it without opening the cube. Impossible. Or, I said, standing, it was never genuine at all. His voice sharpened. You tread on dangerous ground, Mr. Goodwin. I prefer solid ground, I said. And right now, yours feels engineered. As I left, I felt his gaze on my back. Not fearful, but calculating. A man who had ensured a legend and watched it vanish in 12 seconds of darkness. Outside, I phoned Wolfe. Well? He asked. Vask insists the diamond was real. Produced documents. An appraisal from a Dr. Emil Korff in Antwerp, and your impression? He's either confident because he's innocent, I said, or confident because he believes the proof burned with the fuse. Wolfe was silent a moment. Archie, he said finally, return at once. The illusion, I think, is beginning to smoke. When I entered the brownstone, Wolfe was in his chair with his eyes half closed, which meant he was not asleep but assembling pieces in a pattern the rest of us would eventually be allowed to admire. Miss Dane sat rigidly in the red leather chair opposite him. She turned as I came in. Well? She asked. He's confident, I said. Vask has shipping papers, an appraisal certificate from a Dr. Emil Korff in Antwerp, and the composure of a man who believes either in his innocence or in his insulation. Wolfe's eyes opened fully. Describe the certificate. Impressive seal. Flourish in the signature. 3 weeks old. Convenient, Wolfe murmured. And the crate? Vask claims it was properly packed when shipped. At the gallery, it contained only a velvet case and the diamond. No cushioning. Wolfe's lips tightened slightly. A 47-carat diamond is not a pocket watch. It is not entrusted to air. Miss Dane leaned forward. Then it was switched before it arrived. Possibly, Wolfe said, but consider, if one intends to defraud an insurer, one must establish existence. If one intends to embarrass a gallery, one must establish expectation. In both cases, witnesses are required. There were witnesses, I said. Halbrook, Tarrant, Clee. They saw Vask place the stone in the cube. Under gallery lighting, Wolfe said softly. I nodded. Calibrated to enhance brilliance. Miss Dane looked between us. You think it was fake? I think, Wolfe said, that brilliance can be engineered. Mr. Goodwin, did Vask describe the stone? Clear. Faint blue heart under certain light. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. Ah, what? I asked. A blue heart is a poetic description, not a gemological one. Did he mention inclusions, facets, origin? No. He spoke as a patron, not as an owner, Wolfe said. Miss Dane's hands tightened in her lap. Then the blackout served to prevent prolonged scrutiny, Wolfe finished, and to destroy any electronic record that might contradict testimony. I thought of Adrian's words. Reverse voltage into the generator. Control board fried, yes, Wolfe said. An elegant excess. A simple outage might be dismissed as malfunction. A catastrophic failure invites assumption of complexity, of technical guilt. Adrian, Miss Dane whispered. Wolfe inclined his head. He is the most convenient complexity. The doorbell rang. Wolfe's eyes flicked to the clock. It was within acceptable hours. I went. Sol Panza stepped in, expression neutral, hat in hand. I've checked Antwerp, he said as soon as we were seated. Dr. Emil Korff exists. He's reputable. But he didn't appraise any stone called the Voltaire star. Miss Dane inhaled sharply. Sol continued. His office confirmed the certificate number on Vask's document belongs to a different diamond, Much smaller. Certified 6 months ago. Wolfe closed his eyes briefly, as if savoring a vintage. Forgery, I said. Or duplication, Saul replied. Korf says his seal was scanned once for a journal feature. Could be replicated. Wolfe nodded. And Vask's finances? Liquidated assets equal to roughly the insured value. If he collects, he stabilizes. If he does not, he's exposed. Miss Dane looked as if someone had removed the floor beneath her. So the diamond was fake, she said. Not necessarily, Wolfe said. It may have existed briefly. Or it may have been a simulacrum. What matters is that proof of its authenticity has evaporated. I leaned forward. There's still the cube. Yes, Wolfe agreed. The sealed cube that was found sealed. And the scuff on the prong, I added. Wolfe's gaze snapped to me. Explain. I described the bright mark on one of the mount's metal prongs, as if a ring had been slid off hastily. Wolfe steepled his fingers. If the stone was substituted during rehearsal, that scuff might indicate removal before the blackout. Then the blackout wasn't to steal it, Miss Dane said. It was to confirm it gone. To confirm, Wolfe corrected, and to eliminate contradiction. Saul spoke. There's more. Ronan Clee has a prior employment record in private security firms that specialize in high-value transport. 2 complaints. Nothing proven. For what? I asked. Evidence mishandling. In one case, a missing antique watch resurfaced after insurance settlement. Wolfe's eyes gleamed. Ah, Miss Dane turned pale. You think Clee and Vask? I think, Wolfe said, that opportunity attracts collaboration, but we must not leap. He looked at me. Archie, when you examined the fuse, you noted it burned. Yes, was the damage symmetrical? I blinked. No, one end was more charred, indicating direction, Wolfe said. Current flowed abnormally. If someone fed reverse voltage from the generator line, the surge would travel backward toward the main. Adrian said the control board looked like it received voltage from the wrong direction. Indeed. Wolfe leaned back. Thus, the blackout was engineered not merely to darken the room, but to create electrical chaos sufficient to destroy monitoring data, and to point at the engineer, I said. Yes, Miss Dane's voice was small. What do we do? Wolfe opened his eyes fully. Decision time. We invite them, he said. Invite who? I asked. All of them. Mrs. Halbrook, Mr. Tarrant, Mr. Clee, Mr. Vask. And Mr. Adrian Dane. Miss Dane stared. Here? Yes. The brownstone has advantages. Control of environment. Control of sequence. And if they refuse? I asked. They will not, Wolfe said calmly. Each believes he or she possesses an advantage. Pride will compel attendance. Saul rose. Want me in the room? Outside, Wolfe said. Observe arrivals. Saul nodded and left. Miss Dane looked at Wolfe with something like hope and fear braided together. You know who did it? I know, Wolfe said, that the diamond's existence is secondary. The essential crime is manipulation, of light, of systems, of perception. Someone relied on 12 seconds of darkness to solidify a lie. He turned to me. Archie, make the calls. Tell them Mr. Wolfe has resolved the matter of the Voltaire Star and wishes to prevent public embarrassment. That should do it, I said. As I reached for the phone, Wolfe added, and inform Mr. Vask that we have confirmed the authenticity of his certificate. I looked up. But we haven't. Wolfe's eyes glinted. Precisely. Miss Dane watched us, bewildered, but silent. The illusion was no longer smoking. It was beginning to glow, and Wolfe intended to gather everyone close enough to feel the heat. By 7:30, the brownstone had surrendered its usual evening calm to a controlled invasion. I stationed myself in the hall as the guests arrived, one by one, each carrying a version of certainty. Miriam Halbrook came first, composed and immaculate, her eyes measuring the hallway as if considering acquisition. Felix Tarrant followed, nerves wrapped in silk. Ronan Clee entered with the contained alertness of a man who dislikes rooms he cannot dominate. Leonid Vask arrived last, unhurried, coat draped precisely, expression unreadable. Adrian Dane stood near my desk, pale but steady. His sister sat to one side, hands clasped tightly enough to blanch the knuckles. Wolfe remained behind his desk, vast and immovable, eyes half-lidded until the last chair was occupied. The room felt smaller with every breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wolfe began, voice calm and resonant, "we are gathered to clarify the circumstances surrounding the disappearance of the so-called Voltaire star." Vask's gaze flicked briefly toward me. I kept my face neutral. Wolfe continued. "I have been informed that the diamond was insured for $20 million 48 hours before its unveiling. I have also been informed that the appraisal certificate supporting its authenticity is fraudulent." The word landed without volume, but with impact. Vask's expression did not change. "That is an accusation." "It is a fact," Wolfe replied. Dr. Emil Korff did not issue the certificate presented. Holbrook's composure faltered for the first time. "Mr. Vask?" Vask turned slightly toward her. "There must be some misunderstanding." "Indeed," Wolfe said. "There is." Silence thickened. I could almost hear Clee's jaw tighten. Wolfe steepled his fingers. "The question before us is not merely who stole a diamond, but whether a diamond existed to be stolen." Tarrant shifted in his seat. "We all saw it." "You saw something," Wolfe corrected gently. Under lighting calibrated to enhance brilliance, Holbrook's voice was cool. "Are you suggesting the gallery exhibited a counterfeit?" "I suggest nothing yet," Wolfe said. "I examined sequence." He turned his gaze to Clee. "Mr. Clee, when the lights failed, where were you?" "In the main hall." "And you reached the pedestal first when illumination returned?" "Yes." "And found the cube sealed?" "Yes." "Yet the diamond was gone?" "Yes." Wolfe inclined his head. "Curious. It was theft," Clee said flatly. "Perhaps," Wolfe allowed. "Mr. Dane, you reached the basement shortly after the outage?" "Yes." "And observed the main fuse destroyed?" "Yes." "And the generator control board fried?" "Yes." Wolfe nodded slowly. A surge of unusual directionality. Adrian looked startled. "Yes." Wolfe's gaze swept the room. This was no accidental blackout. It was engineered to accomplish 3 objectives: extinguish visibility, disable recording systems, and create technical devastation sufficient to assign blame. Holbrook's eyes sharpened. "To whom?" "To the engineer," Wolfe said. Adrian swallowed. Vask spoke, voice measured. "You are building a narrative without proof." "On the contrary," Wolfe replied. "Proof resides in contradiction." He leaned back slightly. "The crate arrived at the gallery devoid of packing materials. That alone is implausible. A jewel of such magnitude is not entrusted to air. Either the crate was altered before arrival, or its contents were misrepresented." Tarrant's hands twisted in his lap. Wolfe continued. "At rehearsal, witnesses observed Mr. Vask place the diamond within the cube. Yet no independent gemological verification occurred on site." Holbrook stiffened. "We relied on the certificate." "A certificate now known to be false." Vask's voice hardened. "If the certificate was forged, I am as much a victim as anyone." "Possibly," Wolfe said mildly. "But consider the scuff on the mounting prong within the cube." Clee's head snapped slightly toward me before he could stop himself. Wolfe did not miss it. "That scuff suggests removal not during darkness, but prior. The blackout served not to extract the stone, but to confirm its absence and obliterate electronic contradiction." Holbrook's breath caught. "Are you saying?" "I am saying," Wolfe said, that if the diamond was substituted with a simulacrum at rehearsal, only 3 individuals had proximity and access to the cube's internal sensor loop. His eyes moved deliberately from Holbrook to Tarrant to Clee. Tarrant paled visibly. "I never." Wolfe raised a hand. "I do not accuse you, Mr. Tarrant. I observe that Mr. Clee's professional history includes prior allegations of evidence mishandling during high-value insurance claims." Clee's chair scraped slightly against the floor. "Unproven, indeed," Wolfe said. "As yet." Vask's voice cut in. "You are attempting to deflect from your false claim regarding the certificate." Wolfe turned to him with calm precision. "Mr. Vask, your recent liquidation of assets approximates the insured value of the Voltaire Star. If the diamond were declared stolen, you would recover that sum. If it were declared non-existent, you would recover nothing." The room held its breath. "You imply motive," Vask said. "I imply arithmetic," Wolfe replied. Miss Dane's fingers tightened. Wolfe continued, "The blackout's electrical signature indicates reverse voltage introduced at the generator interface. Such manipulation requires technical knowledge of the building's systems, knowledge available to Mr. Dane and to Mr. Clee." Adrian stiffened. Clee's eyes narrowed. However, Wolfe added calmly, Mr. Dane had no access to the generator's physical controls during the critical moment. Mr. Clee did. Clee leaned forward. "You have no proof." Wolfe's voice remained even. "On the contrary, Mr. Goodwin observed asymmetrical burn patterns on the fuse consistent with surge originating from the generator line. Mr. Dane's design would not produce such a reversal. A security consultant with transport experience might." Vask's gaze flicked to Clee just for an instant. Wolfe saw it. "Thus," Wolfe said softly, "we approach the essential question. Was the Voltaire Star ever authentic? Or was it an illusion designed to explode electrically and financially at a precise moment?" No one spoke. Wolfe folded his hands atop his desk. "I believe," he said, "that one among you can answer that question definitively." The silence that followed was not empty. It was charged, like a circuit waiting for completion. No one accepted Wolfe's invitation to confession. That would have been too simple, and simplicity had been carefully avoided from the beginning. Clee broke first, though not with words. His hand shifted toward his jacket pocket, slow, reflexive, but enough. Saul Panzer, who had been stationed discreetly near the hall, stepped into the doorway without hurry and without expression. Clee's hand stopped. "I advise stillness," Saul said mildly. Clee's jaw flexed. "This is ridiculous." "On the contrary," Wolfe said, "it is inevitable." Leonid Vask remained seated, but the composure he wore like tailoring had begun to crease. Miriam Halbrook's gaze moved between the two men with dawning calculation. Wolfe's eyes rested on Vask. "You required liquidity. $20 million would restore equilibrium. However, to claim insurance, you needed both spectacle and theft. A donation publicly unveiled, then dramatically stolen." Vask's voice was low. "You speculate. I deduce," Wolfe corrected. "But you miscalculated one element. You required technical assistance to ensure the blackout disabled all recording systems and destroyed the generator sufficiently to imply sabotage. You did not possess that expertise." Silence answered him. "You engaged Mr. Clee," Wolfe continued. His background in high-value transport and prior proximity to questionable insurance recoveries made him suitable. He had access to the cube's internal sensor loop and to the generator interface. Clee's eyes flicked to Vask again, this time openly. Wolfe inclined his head. At rehearsal, the authentic diamond, if indeed it existed, was briefly displayed. It was then replaced with a synthetic simulacrum under the guise of final adjustment. The scuff on the mounting prong indicates hurried removal. Halbrook inhaled sharply. Replaced? In front of us? In your presence, Wolfe said, but not under scrutiny. Lighting designed to enhance brilliance can also obscure subtle differences. A synthetic stone of high quality would suffice for visual confirmation. Tarrant's face had gone ashen. I would have noticed. No, Wolfe said gently. You expected authenticity. Expectation blinds. Vask rose abruptly. This is fantasy. Sit, Saul said quietly. Vask hesitated, then remained standing but did not advance. Wolfe's tone did not change. After rehearsal, the authentic stone was removed from the premises. The simulacrum remained within the cube. At the appointed moment, Mr. Klee introduced reverse voltage at the generator interface, creating a surge sufficient to destroy the main fuse and disable recording equipment. In the ensuing darkness, nothing needed to be taken. When the lights returned, Mr. Klee reached the pedestal first and declared the diamond gone. Halbrook's voice trembled slightly. But the cube was sealed. Yes, Wolfe said. Sealed around a simulacrum which, in the confusion, was swiftly removed before any independent verification could occur. Klee's composure cracked. That's absurd. I never. Wolfe's gaze pinned him. You accessed the utility room before Mr. Dane. You possessed both proximity and technical knowledge. And you benefited from prior experience in claims recovery. Vask's face had lost color now. You have no proof the stone was authentic to begin with. On the contrary, Wolfe said softly. You insisted repeatedly that it was genuine. Yet you failed to describe any gemological characteristic beyond poetic flourish. Moreover, the appraisal certificate was forged. Why forge a certificate for a genuine stone? Vask did not answer. Because, Wolfe continued, the authentic diamond existed, but not under the name Voltaire Star. It belonged to another collection, acquired under discrete circumstances. To ensure it under a fabricated identity required documentation. Forgery was simpler than provenance. Halbrook stared at Vask as if seeing him for the first time. Wolfe's voice remained steady. The plan was elegant. Donate a jewel publicly, insure it, substitute it, stage its theft, collect the indemnity. The authentic stone remains safely elsewhere, to be sold quietly when attention fades. Klee's breathing had grown shallow. Wolfe turned to him. However, you introduced unnecessary violence into the system. The catastrophic surge risked unpredictability. You overreached. Klee's composure shattered. He said it had to look real, he snapped, jerking his chin toward Vask. A simple outage wouldn't convince the insurer. They'd audit the logs. We needed the data gone, Halbrook gasped. Vask's voice came sharp and furious. You fool. Saul moved fully into the room now. Wolfe raised a hand slightly. Thank you, Mr. Klee. Your candor clarifies sequence. Klee stared at Vask, betrayal written plainly. You promised it was airtight. It would have been, Vask hissed, if you hadn't scorched the entire system. Wolfe's eyes closed briefly, then opened. Thus, the diamond that blew the fuse was not the stone itself, but the greed surrounding it. A real diamond may endure pressure. Character, apparently, does not. Miss Dane's shoulders sagged with relief. Adrian exhaled shakily. Halbrook found her voice. The authentic stone, where is it? Vask's silence was answer enough. Saul stepped closer to Klee. You'll want counsel, he said evenly. Klee looked suddenly smaller. Wolfe addressed Halbrook. I suggest you contact Halcyon Indemnity immediately and disclose the fraud. Cooperation may mitigate institutional damage. She nodded stiffly, eyes still fixed on Vask. Adrian stepped forward. My name will be cleared, Wolfe said. Technical evidence will support your account. Miss Dane crossed the room and gripped her brother's arm. Vask stood rigid, calculation finally exhausted. You cannot prove the stone ever existed. Wolfe met his gaze. Perhaps not in court, but insurers are pragmatic. Faced with forgery and confession, they will decline payment. Your liquidity problem remains. Vosk's shoulders sagged by a fraction. It was the first honest movement he had made. Soul guided Klee toward the hall. The room slowly exhaled. Wolfe leaned back, massive and serene. 12 seconds of darkness, he said quietly, were intended to conceal illusion. Instead, they illuminated motive. No one contradicted him. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent. Inside the brownstone, order reasserted itself, not through force, but through the simple exposure of truth. After Saul escorted Klee into the custody of 2 plainclothesmen who had been waiting discreetly down the block, an arrangement Wolfe had anticipated with his usual distaste for surprises, the brownstones settled into the kind of quiet that follows a storm, not of weather, but of human ambition. Leonid Vosk did not wait for the police. He requested the use of our telephone, spoke briefly in a language I didn't recognize, and then stood in the middle of Wolfe's office as if recalculating his life in diminishing figures. "You have prevented an injustice," he said at last, glancing toward Adrian Dane. "For that, I suppose I should be grateful." Wolfe regarded him without warmth. "Gratitude is unnecessary. Prudence would have sufficed earlier." Vosk's mouth tightened. "You assume I orchestrated everything." "I deduced collaboration," Wolfe replied. Mr. Klee's confession confirmed sequence. "Confession under pressure," Vosk said. "There was no pressure," Wolfe said mildly. "Only inevitability." Holbrook had already departed to contact her insurer and legal counsel, Tarrant trailing behind her like a chastened echo. Miss Dane and Adrian remained, still absorbing the collapse of a narrative that had nearly crushed them. Adrian approached Wolfe's desk. "Mr. Wolfe, You will provide a formal statement detailing the generator's configuration and the impossibility of spontaneous reverse surge," Wolfe said. "Mr. Goodwin will assist." Adrian nodded, relief and exhaustion mingling in his expression. Miss Dane looked at Wolfe with steady eyes. "You believed him from the beginning." "I believed in logic," Wolfe corrected. "Your brother's system would not self-destruct without motive." She gave a faint smile. "Thank you." When they left, the house felt restored. Fritz announced dinner from the doorway with restrained curiosity, having undoubtedly followed the evening's progress through tonal shifts and footfalls. Wolfe rose with deliberate heaviness. "Archie, you will join me." "I wouldn't miss it," I said. At table, Wolfe applied himself to the duck with appropriate reverence. For a few minutes the case was set aside in favor of gastronomy, which Wolfe considers not indulgence but principle. Between courses he spoke. The essential flaw in Vosk's design was aesthetic. I sipped my wine. Aesthetic? Yes. He relied too heavily on spectacle. A public unveiling, a dramatic blackout, catastrophic electrical failure. It was excessive. "Greed likes fireworks," I said. "Greed," Wolfe replied, "often mistakes elaboration for subtlety." I considered that. If Klee hadn't overcooked the surge, would they have succeeded? "Possibly," Wolfe said. "A simple outage, minimal damage, a vanished simulacrum. The insurer might have hesitated, but lacked contradiction. The catastrophic fuse failure invited scrutiny. And the forged certificate? A necessity born of impatience," Wolfe said. "Authentic provenance requires time. Fraud prefers haste." After dinner, I returned to the office to draft Adrian's statement. Wolfe resumed his chair, eyes half closed, fingers resting lightly on the arms as if the entire affair had been an exercise in mental calisthenics. I looked up from the typewriter. "Do you think the real diamond exists?" Wolfe opened one eye. "Undoubtedly. And Vosk still has it? Almost certainly." "Then justice is incomplete." Wolfe's eye closed again. "Justice is rarely comprehensive. It is, at best, proportionate. I let that sit. Halcyon will deny the claim, yes, and Vosk's financial equilibrium remains unstable. Consequences, Wolfe said, need not involve handcuffs to be effective. There was a pause filled only by the soft clack of keys as I resumed typing. Archie, Wolfe said after a moment, what did you observe first that suggested substitution rather than theft? The scuff on the prong, I said. It didn't look like something done in the dark. Precisely. Theft in darkness is clumsy. Substitution in light is careful. The scuff betrayed haste before the blackout, not during. And the sealed cube, yes. A sealed container that loses its contents without visible breach is an invitation to examine premise, not mechanism. I leaned back. You never believed the diamond vanished during those 12 seconds. No, Wolfe said. I believed those 12 seconds were intended to persuade us that it had. The doorbell did not ring again that night. No further illusions arrived demanding explanation. The brownstone resumed its proper rhythm, order, thought, appetite. Before retiring, Wolfe offered one final observation, delivered not to me alone but to the quiet itself. A diamond, he said, is prized for its ability to refract light without distortion. Human character, unfortunately, refracts opportunity. I grinned. Meaning? Meaning, Wolfe replied, that under sufficient pressure, flaws reveal themselves. He closed his eyes fully then, signaling the end. As I switched off the desk lamp, I considered the fuse in the gallery basement, burned not by accident, but by ambition. The Voltaire star might yet surface somewhere under another name, gleaming in a private vault, but its brief career as a public miracle had ended not in brilliance, but in smoke. And if there was a lesson in that, it wasn't about electricity or insurance. It was about the simple fact that darkness doesn't hide truth. It only delays it. The following morning began precisely at 11, as it should. Wolfe had concluded his hours with the orchids and was installed behind his desk with a cup of coffee whose aroma he regarded as a civil right. I was reviewing the newspapers, which had not yet discovered that the Voltaire star had imploded before it ever properly shone. At 11:15, the doorbell rang. I looked at Wolfe. He looked at the clock. The bell rang again, once, not insistently. I went. Leonid Vask stood on the stoop alone. He looked different in daylight without audience, less imperial, more deliberate. He removed his hat when I opened the door. I wish to speak with Mr. Wolfe, he said. You've done that, I said. It was expensive. I require 5 minutes. I considered, then stepped aside. He entered without surveying the hallway this time. No calculation, only purpose. Wolfe did not rise. Mr. Vask, he said. You are punctual. I prefer resolution, Vask replied. Resolution, Wolfe said, was achieved last evening. Not entirely. Wolfe's eyes sharpened a fraction. Explain. Vask remained standing until I indicated the chair. He sat, hands clasped loosely. You are correct, he said. The Voltaire star exists. I assumed as much, Wolfe replied. It also exists, Vask continued, under a different name. It was acquired privately from a collection whose provenance would not withstand public scrutiny. Smuggling? I asked. Vask's gaze flicked toward me. Let us say its export documentation was creative. Wolfe inclined his head slightly. And your financial strain? Exaggerated, but real, Vask said. Liquidation was intended to consolidate, not to collapse. The insurance plan was conceived as leverage, a temporary measure. A temporary fraud, I said. Yes, Wolfe's tone remained even. And Mr. Klee? He was recommended, Vask said quietly. He assured me the electrical manipulation would appear as technical failure, not catastrophe. You misjudged him, Wolfe said. I misjudged risk, Vask corrected. There was no bravado left in him now, only calculation tempered by fatigue. Why are you here? Wolfe asked. Vask drew a breath because the insurer has not yet been formally notified. Holbrook is consulting counsel. If the matter proceeds as simple fraud, the gallery will suffer reputational harm that exceeds its culpability. Wolfe's brow lifted slightly. You wish to mitigate collateral damage? Yes. And your proposal? I will withdraw any claim. I will provide documentation that the stone was removed prior to unveiling for private reassessment. The blackout will be attributed solely to Mr. Klee's unauthorized actions. And the forgery? I asked. I will assume responsibility, Vask said. Publicly. I stared at him. That's generous. It is strategic, he replied. Wolfe regarded him steadily. You understand that such an admission may invite scrutiny beyond insurance? Yes. And the diamond? It will remain unseen. Wolfe leaned back, folding his hands. Why not simply disappear? Vask gave a faint, humorless smile. Because disappearance invites pursuit. Controlled exposure limits it. There it was, logic meeting logic. Wolfe was silent for several seconds. The clock ticked, impartial as ever. Mr. Vask, Wolfe said at last, your plan relied on spectacle and manipulation. It failed because it assumed that destruction obscures. In truth, destruction clarifies. If you now choose controlled confession, you may preserve fragments of credibility. That is my intention, and you expect my endorsement? I expect, Vask said, that you prefer proportionate consequence to chaotic ruin. Wolfe's gaze held him. Then, slowly, he nodded once. Archie will contact Mrs. Holbrook. You will meet here this afternoon. A statement will be drafted, precise, limited, sufficient. Vask inclined his head. Thank you. As he rose to leave, he paused. Mr. Wolfe, you spoke of flaws under pressure. I will remember that. I suggest you remember the pressure as well, Wolfe replied. When Vask had gone, I looked at Wolfe. You're letting him walk. I am allowing him to choose the narrower cliff, Wolfe said. He will not attempt such elaboration again. You're sure? No, Wolfe said. But he now knows that 12 seconds of darkness are insufficient to conceal ambition from scrutiny. I phoned Holbrook. She arrived at 2, controlled but strained. Vask returned promptly. Together, under Wolfe's dictation, a statement was composed, acknowledgement of forged appraisal, withdrawal of insurance claim, attribution of electrical sabotage to Klee acting beyond instruction. It was crafted carefully, truthful where necessary, silent where prudent. Holbrook read it twice. This protects the gallery, she said quietly. It protects what remains, Wolfe corrected. Vask signed first. His pen did not tremble. When they departed together, no longer allies, not yet adversaries, the brownstone reclaimed its silence once more. I closed the door and returned to the office. Wolfe sat with eyes closed, breathing slow, as if the entire episode had been an interruption in a well-ordered afternoon. Well, I said, the diamond didn't just blow a fuse. It nearly blew up half of Manhattan's art scene. Wolfe opened one eye. Hyperbole. Archie. Moderate hyperbole. He allowed the faintest curve at the corner of his mouth. An object of carbon, he said, exposed a lattice of vanity, greed, and impatience. It is remarkable what humans will construct around a stone, and what they'll burn down, I added. Yes, Wolfe said softly, but combustion leaves residue. He reached for his coffee, now cooled, and regarded it with mild disapproval. The brownstone, he continued, remains intact. That is sufficient. I looked around the office, the red leather chair, the orderly desk, the quiet walls that had heard ambition confess itself and collapse. Until the next bell, I said. Wolfe closed his eyes again. There is always another bell, and somewhere in the city, perhaps in a vault behind discreet steel, a diamond refracted light in silence. Brilliant, flawless, and entirely indifferent to the ruin it had nearly inspired. The newspapers carried the story 2 days later, though in diluted form. Security consultant arrested in gallery sabotage. The diamond itself was referred to only as a disputed private loan. The Voltaire star, as a public marvel, had already begun to dissolve into rumor. In the brownstone, dissolution is not our concern. Completion is. Halbrook's formal statement, signed and countersigned, reached Halcyon Indemnity before noon. The insurer declined the claim with restrained language and aggressive efficiency. Klee, confronted with documentary proof of the forged appraisal and his own injudicious admission in our office, Soule had been meticulous, elected to cooperate. His attorney negotiated, and in the process confirmed what Wolfe had already mapped. The authentic diamond had been removed from the gallery premises immediately after rehearsal and transferred to a private holding facility under Vasque's control. The blackout had been theater. On the third evening after the gathering, Miss Dane returned alone. Adrian had resumed work pending formal clearance. The gallery, eager to contain embarrassment, had issued a statement absolving him of fault. The electrical damage report, precise, technical, irrefutable, had shifted all suspicion away from the engineer and toward the sabotage. Miss Dane stood in the office with a composure that had replaced strain. "It's finished," she said. "Yes," Wolfe replied. "They've cleared Adrian publicly." "And the insurer isn't pursuing him. That was never plausible," Wolfe said. She hesitated. Mr. Vasque issued a private apology to the board. "Prudence," Wolfe murmured. She studied him. "You knew he would." "I knew he valued equilibrium." "And the diamond?" she asked. Wolfe's eyes rested on her calmly. "It exists. It will continue to exist. Its future is not our affair." She nodded slowly. "I suppose that's enough." "It is," Wolfe said. "Justice need not recover every object. It must recover proportion." After she left, I leaned back in my chair. "You could have pressed harder," I said. "Forced disclosure of the stone's location." Wolfe shook his head faintly. "To what end?" "The insurer is satisfied. The gallery is preserved. An innocent man is cleared. The conspirators are exposed to consequence. Further pursuit would gratify curiosity, not necessity." "Curiosity is underrated," I said. "Not in this house," Wolfe replied. I thought about that. The case had begun with a bell rung at the wrong hour and a claim that a diamond did not exist. It had unfolded through documents, voltage patterns, scuffed metal, and the subtle tremor in a man's voice when arithmetic turned against him. "You never believed in the theft," I said. "I believed in intention," Wolfe corrected. "The theft was rhetorical." "And the fuse?" "A device," Wolfe said, "like the blackout itself, destruction as persuasion." I remembered the burned cylinder in the gallery basement, glass cracked, metal blackened, an object sacrificed to give weight to illusion. "They underestimated you," I said. "They underestimated logic," Wolfe replied, "and overestimated spectacle." Fritz entered then with coffee, and something sweet he claimed was restorative. Wolfe accepted both with dignified approval. "Archie," he said after a moment, "recall the sequence. Rehearsal, substitution, forged certificate, insurance activation, electrical sabotage, public declaration of theft. Good. Now remove the diamond entirely." I blinked. "Remove it?" "Yes. Imagine no stone existed at any stage," I considered. "Then the entire plan rests on expectation, on the assumption that everyone would believe in something because they were told to." "Precisely," Wolfe said. "The true commodity was not carbon. It was belief, and 12 seconds of darkness were meant to freeze that belief in place." "Yes," I sipped my coffee. "Instead, it melted. Because," Wolfe said, "belief unsupported by structure collapses under scrutiny. There was a silence then, companionable rather than charged. "Do you regret not seeing the real stone?" I asked. Wolfe regarded me with mild astonishment. "I have orchids. That's not the same. It is superior," he said. "Orchids do not require insurance." I laughed. Later that evening, as the house settled into its measured quiet, I found myself at the front window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere beyond them, in a vault or safe deposit box, a diamond refracted light into perfect geometry, cold, indifferent, untroubled by human miscalculation. Behind me, Wolfe spoke without opening his eyes. "Archie. Yes, remember this. Objects do not corrupt. They tempt. And people?" "People," Wolfe said, "provide the voltage." I turned from the window. "So the diamond didn't blow the fuse?" "No," Wolfe said softly. "Greed did." He shifted slightly in his chair, immense and immovable, and closed his eyes fully. "The brownstone," he added, "has endured greater storms than 12 seconds of darkness." I glanced at the door, half expecting the bell to ring again. It did not. For now the house was intact. The illusion had been dismantled not with force, but with patience. A forged certificate had unraveled under inquiry. A surge had traced back to its source. A scuffed prong had whispered substitution. Each detail, small and precise, had formed a chain stronger than spectacle. That is how Wolfe prefers it. No chase across rooftops, no gunfire in alleys, only a room, a mind, and the steady tightening of logic until confession becomes less painful than denial. Outside, the city hummed on, manufacturing fresh ambitions. Inside, Wolfe reached for the last of his coffee. "There will be another bell," I said. "There is always another bell," he replied. "And when it rings, it will not be darkness that concerns him. It will be the flaw in the light."